Hi, I'm Rowan.
I'm Calvin.
I'm Zach.
And you're watching episode 3.16 of In the Zone. Today we're going to be discussing the Twilight Zone episode, Nothing in the Dark. If you don't want to spoil for you, check it out before you watch this because we're going to spoil the whole thing. So we start in an old house. It's snowing outside.
I thought it was a factory for some reason, but I don't know.
There's an old woman there. What does that say? Noises.
Yeah.
There are noises
Something gets
outside.
knocked over, I think.
Yeah, there's some noises outside, and then she sees this dude outside, and she gets scared,
She hears footsteps.
and then she locks the door,
Yeah.
and then there's like this loud whistle and gunshots, and she's freaking out. The
Whoa.
dude outside falls,
And she hears, "Oh, I've been shot! Help!"
so then she's like, "Go away, you're lying, you can't fool me, I know who you are, I know what you are."
Dramatic music.
And then we see Rod Serling in like a very dumb way, he's like in the mirror, and then he's there in real life.
Yeah.
The important part of his intro, or the most important part, is he says, "Oh, this woman has won many battles with death." But
She has fought 1,000 battles with death and it's fine.
Yeah.
so we fade to black.
But like otherwise it's pretty weak. It's like she knows that this door leads to the Twilight Zone.
You know
And
what
it's like, Rod!
You know what I've noticed is that all the intros are pretty weak and pointless.
Yeah.
You just don't realize it 'cause it's all dramatic. And it
Well, there are
sounds
some that aren't
good.
weak and pointless, but like this one was weak.
Right. Some of them give you helpful plot details that would have been dumb to do during expository dialogue. That's a good thing.
Like it's.
And some of them are like, "Whoa, I'm excited!" Like the arrival, where it's like we're gonna put together the pieces of a puzzle. It's like it makes you excited,
Or
but otherwise,
It's a Good Life, like that was a worthwhile intro. It was like
what an episode. We fade to black. We come up, and so she like
And
slowly
she still
opens the
opens
door.
it,
It's
and
not
it's like-
fully open because there's like the lockers. So you
Right.
can see.
And you just see his head, and he shares with her. His name is Harold Belden.
He's like, "I'll die unless you help me." And he's like, "I need a doctor, call a hospital." And she says, "I haven't got a telephone." And then she doesn't want to let him in because she doesn't want to die.
Right.
And so this is sort of mysterious for the audience. But then she unlocks the door, and then she touches him. "I'm still alive." Then she takes him inside. So then later she's making tea.
So basically, it's a bunch of padding.
I disagree. I don't think
I mean,
it's
it's
padding.
not a bunch of
I
padding,
wouldn't say it's
but like at
padding.
some
It's
point,
not padding. It's just boring.
it's
Too
not
much
padding.
boring
It's predictable.
Death. I mean.
Harold.
Gets sort of mad at her because she didn't call a doctor, but it's because she
Right.
has no phone, no neighbors.
Right.
They all moved away, and she's like, "Well, even if I could call a doctor, I don't want to take the chance because it
Right,
might be
could
Mr. Death." So then we
Right.
understand her fear is of death. She's like, "Well, death is pretended to be many things: a gas man, a contractor who said that they were gonna demolish the building." She says, "A long time ago, I was on the bus, and this dude sat next to an old woman,
Right.
and then he picked up the yarn she dropped, touched the fingers, got off, she died." And so this has sort of sparked her fear for the rest of her life. And she's like,
Etc.
"I've seen him in several and many times, in many forms. Whenever I've been with someone dying, he's been there."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Because I'm old, I can see him more clearly." And she hasn't been outside in years.
A boy gets her food and then
Yes.
she waits until he's
Right.
gone to pick
Like
it up.
I'm thinking, a boy gets her food. Whoa! What if the boy is dead?
Well, yeah, but she takes that precaution too.
Yes, she
Right.
doesn't ever speak to him. She just leaves him money outside and then waits until he's
Now
gonna get
the
the
thing
food.
is, this is a little bit stupid.
Like, if the boy was
Because
dead.
if she's going outside ever, right, and Death really wants to get her, so she goes outside, grabs the food. Death pops up from the bushes. Ah! Like, what if she just opens the door to have the chain and then like gets a stick
Right.
and just pulls it?
She gets like a cane.
And
No, no.
scoops it.
But then she pulls Death in by accident.
Ah!
It's like,
And then the death is like hiding in the food basket, and it's like,
Like, she opens it up to like the sauce, and Death comes out.
So she's like, "I wasn't always this way. When I was young, I used to go out all the time." But
people said I was
The
beautiful.
bask in sunlight. I like to
Right.
go out.
And so she contrasts the light of her youth to dark, living in the dark, like the title,
Yeah.
"Nothing in the Dark." She's like, "Oh, and say the line."
I'd rather live in the dark than not at all.
And then a man shows up at the door, and Harold's like, "You better answer it. There's nothing to be afraid of." And then she like opens it so that the
Opens
chain's
it.
there, and he's like, "Coming through, got my orders." And then he like breaks the chain and like comes in. But then she like falls down, and then he touches her. Fade to black. We come up, and then she wakes up, and she's like, "And still I live. You touched me, and still I live." And then he's like, oh, sorry for like hitting you in the face with the door. He's like mad at her that she scared him by falling down. So he's like, I'm here to demolish the tenement. He's like, are you Mr. Death? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But anyways, that's weird.
Yeah.
I have to demolish these buildings that have been condemned by the city.
The old make room for the new. We get this monologue.
Right. So there's, he's like,
oh, how are you holding my attention?
No, I thought this part was interesting where he talks about how the old buildings make new for the new buildings. And it's like, so same with people, sort of. I thought it was sort of an interesting symbolism how he's sort of another version of Mr. Death. Yeah, like how he's bringing death in a different way.
Yeah.
I thought this scene, it was sort of padding, but it was interesting padding. It wasn't padding. It was an interesting symbolism thing.
It's interesting, but it's like, it's just such a bizarre thing for a contractor to be doing that it's like, what are you doing?
He's like, he's like very poetic. Later, it's like, if you don't cooperate, I'll have to call a cop.
Right.
He's like,
she's like, let me explain.
Right.
I have a cop right here. He can explain.
But then he's like, what? What are you talking about?
I don't see anyone.
I wonder if Mr. Belden is dead.
And then he leaves. So she's like, what? You are? And he's like, look in the mirror. And he's not there, but here's the thing. We never establish that death doesn't show up in the mirror. It's like, is that just common knowledge? He's just not there in the mirror? It's just weird and specific.
Yeah. Well, he's like, it's not that he's not in the mirror, it's that he's like a figment of the imagination. Like Mr. Death is like not actually, he's not actually like a real, I don't know. I think it makes sense because he's like not a real physical person and he's not like actually there.
If he was a figment of her imagination, why wasn't he just in the mirror? A figment there. Figments don't show up in the mirror. That's the old rule.
No, that's not a rule. I don't know. I did not have a problem with that.
He's like, why didn't you kill me immediately? And he's like, well, I wanted to show you that death isn't bad. See, I'm not frightening. I'm just a hunk. He's like, it's time to rest. Give me your hand. But I don't want to die. And now here I think she's pretty good when she's like, oh, I just don't want to die.
Yeah.
And then, they come in with that walking distance music, which is amazing music, but then it's like, sort of rather be watching walking distance. But anyways, not important, but the music, I mean.
Yeah. She touches his hand, and she's like, wait a minute, why am I not gone yet?
He's like, oh, you actually are dead.
You've already be gone.
And then we get a cut to her dead body.
He's like, look over there. Oh, that's nice, my quote.
Whoa!
He's like, it's not the end, it's just the beginning.
Whoa!
And she's dead. And so...
Man, this would be a really cool way to do a double episode. Like a double showing.
Oh, yeah, part 2. And then and then the second half is a nice place to visit.
No, it turns out she's in hell.
We got a weak Serling outro.
They walk out together. What's his outro?
I don't know. It was a week. That's what I remember.
She died.
Unfortunately, she was dead.
In the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. The demolishing group
you already
accidentally sprayed blood all over the screen.
No.
We didn't know she was in there. Not a stupid episode, but like a little bit
better than last, but still
pacing difficulties, big pace, some challenges.
Not good twist.
Predictable. You know what? He's Mr. Death as soon as she starts talking about Mr. Death.
Of course, because it's like 2 people there. And it's like, I wonder if the other guy she's talking to about death, who got into her house, might be Death. It's like, it wouldn't make any sense if the episode didn't end with someone being Death. Well, bye, I'm just a normal dude, have a good day. That would have been a great twist.
It had an inconsistent level of detail. So it was like, there were times when it was like, yep, that was explained enough, you didn't, alright, you're still going. And then there were like, Death doesn't show up in a mirror, why didn't she die the first time? Right. You had plenty of time to explain that.
What do you think of her as an actress?
Oh, I think she almost carries the episode a little. You don't like
she's
it?
Fine.
She's good in parts, I think most of the time she's, sort of over the top.
I mean, she has an over-the-top character.
Yeah, so you gotta
no, but I think she could have played it more like a sort of like losing her mind old woman than like...
She could have. But she was playing it as like a ever.
Yeah.
I almost expected her to like go to the back and like have a gun and like shoot
like
Mr.
like
Death.
Lavinia Godwin. What were you saying about the contractor being a fake character?
I just feel like the contractor was added in at the end because I feel like he had very little place in the plot.
Yeah, that's true.
Was not a
His
convincing
scene
character.
sort
and
of
was
is
pretty
padding.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's true because this scene, I don't know, it makes an interesting thing where it's like old and new, but it isn't really at all necessary, except for this stuff that, like your house, even if her house wasn't being demolished, that really has no effect on the plot either.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, that's why
yeah.
I think he's a fake character.
There's like nothing good about it.
No, there are good things.
What do you guys like about it?
Alright, here's the thing.
I don't
So
like it.
it's not
what do you like
laughably
about
bad. There's not laughably
Sure.
zero effort put in.
Sure.
And it's not like offensive in any particular way.
I just felt like nothing for it. It's all about the twist, and the twist was so predictable. Guys, it wasn't that boring. One part that's good is the end when she accepts death just because they have that nice walking distance music. Oh, but really, there's just nothing here to see, honestly.
Like, some of the most recent episodes have just not been as good. Like, it's just boring.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, you have to be on drugs to enjoy.
Calvin knows all about this. He's actually written a book called Things You Need to Be on Drugs to Enjoy. With
It's very long.
Yeah, and there are like chapters for different types of drugs. And there's actually an index for like things like by drug.
Right. How many chapters is the Twilight Zone in, and which drugs, please?
10 out of 10. No, just kidding.
We have to use your first rating.
6.
Woohoo! Alright.
9.5.
Wait.
Oh my God! Think of the rating before you say it.
5.5.
4.5.
Whoa!
Because as I've said, there are problems, but really they're not that many. I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah.
It could be a
Oh,
lot
man.
worse. I've seen a lot worse.
5!